Paragliding is a sport that few people in the country know about, despite it attracting many foreign visitors during the paragliding season. For years, the extreme sport has been a preserve of foreigners, but a handful of Kenyans have joined the club. Tonight, Kenya's first and only female paragliding pilot, Nyambura Kariuki, tells us how she learned about the little-known sporting activity.
And how much does this kit cost?
It's a cold morning in Kijabe, one of the best locations in Kenya to go paragliding. You need favorable wind and visibility to engage in the sport, and today is just not one of those days. The fog is heavy and the rains seem to be near.
My name is Nyambura Kariuki. I have many titles. When I'm not a mom, I'm writing books and telling stories about our culture. I'm a psychotherapist. I like working with children. Other than that, I'm a very passionate paraglider. In Kenya, we don't have a training school per se, so I had to now find a school. The closest was South Africa. So I went there last year in 2020, early 2020, and then got my training, got licensed, and now I could free fly.
The sport requires one to train to be a certified pilot before flying. Training, which is done in Europe and South Africa, is costly, as well as the high cost of buying and maintaining the paragliding equipment. Nyambura tells us she cannot risk to fly today.
Takeoff is basically where when you lay out your gear and you have your leading edge where the wind gets into the glider, when it inflates, you just take a few steps and you're airborne. Best when we have southerly winds, southwesterly north winds. Easterlies are not safe for takeoff, and then again I can't take off in very strong winds. It has to be moderate, between 3 to 7 meters per second. In aviation, whether in sports or in transportation, you must take off at the right wind. When we started, it was all foggy. There must be visibility. In whatever way, there must be visibility. The wind must also be facing the right direction, because we are on a hill, and apparently what I learned here is that the wind goes round the hill. So 1 minute it will be facing south, the next minute it will be east. So I have to wait for that opportune time when the wind is the right direction. We always look at the prevailing winds. We look at how the clouds are moving. I can tell you now they're moving southeast because...
The weather app she uses warns against it, and so does the local weatherman Njoki.
Fanya kusubiri. Well, for sure, when it's gusty, I do check it. I do notice with the movement of the trees, how they behave. And for sure, even the clouds, when it's overcast, sometimes the wind drops and sometimes it develops.
The basic items that you must have as a pilot, other than the school, the training and your license, is the parachute, which has to be your weight range. I'm between 60 and 70 kilos. I can't take a glider that's over 80 kilos because ideally I have the glider, and then I have the harness. And on the harness, there's a reserve parachute, just in case anything happens to my regular glider. And then I must have a helmet, and that is now the gear. So there's a lot of caution. We have to watch the wind direction. We have to watch what's happening in the air. We have to look at the birds. We have to look at smoke. If we are near water bodies, we have to look for what they call the white horses, when the ripples are just bigger than normal. Yeah. So when we take off, we have a general direction. You must have what we call a flight path. So you must have a general direction. Normally, as a pilot, you're not supposed to fly alone. You're not supposed to take off without anyone knowing that you're there. We always have a two-way radio between pilots. You can communicate and say the wind has gotten thermic in the air, or don't land here, it's changed down there. So we always give each other directions depending on who is airborne, how they're feeling up there, just to be safe.
Paragliding requires patience, it requires discipline, and most importantly, caution, because one slight mistake could cost you.
landing, generally you're supposed to land facing the wind again, just like when you took off. I've learned that to estimate when I'm about 3 meters above the ground, I start flaring, just basically like an aircraft. I start flaring and to brake so that I can now land on my feet and face the wind and now kill my, for lack of a better word, we call it kill the glider. We always look for open land. Of course, you don't want to land on a tree.
As the only certified Kenyan female paragliding pilot, Nyambura says while there can be tricky and testing times in the sky, it is not a fear of flying that holds many female pilots back.
Honestly, if you ask me, I would say it's more of conditioning, that this is a boys thing. We say what boys can do, girls can do better, and I'm just proving that.
Some of the best locations to go paragliding include Kijabe, Mount Ololokwe and Ndoto Mountains. The most popular, however, is in the Kerio Valley, where you can soar into the skies and get wonderful views of the Rift Valley. Those who have an interest in the sport have to ride as a passenger with a certified pilot on a tandem glider before they can go on their own.
From a mother's perspective, we're usually told childbirth is difficult, but until you see your baby and then you forget all about the pain. So at takeoff, there's always that heartbeat, accelerated heartbeat, and then you get airborne and I just think about nothing, looking and seeing all this can be mine, but it's just a beautiful view. I don't think about anything. For me, this is a sport that just is therapeutic for me. So I just want to clear my head, and I just love just watching.
The mother of four says paragliding gives her a feeling of freedom, of admiring landscapes in a more than comfortable position.